Hey everybody, welcome back to Barter Hordes. My name is Robert. Happy Friday. I'm filming a little bit later on Friday than I normally do, but I just got a late start this morning, could not get going. And then I went for a ride this afternoon. Some of you know I've been cycling again after some 5 months off to rehab a back injury. And today was cool, it's in the high 50s, and windy, and damp because it rained all morning. So it was a challenge going uphill into the wind a couple of times, but it was a good ride. Now I'm just trying to warm back up. I've had my warm shower, I've got my coffee, and I figured I would chat with you before I sat down to do the rest of my reading for the day. Last week I mentioned on this channel that the call for judges for the 2021 BookTube prize is now available. So if you're interested in finding out more information about judging next year's prize, or if you just want the link to sign up to judge next year's prize, I will put the link to that call for judges video in the description box below, and you can watch that short video over on the BookTube prize channel, and that also contains a link to the sign-up form. The sign-ups are going really well. My goal for this coming year is to have 200 judges in the pool, which is a little bit of an increase over last year. And we're already over halfway there, and we still have months to go. So I'm very pleased with the sign-up so far, but I want to get to 200 as quickly as possible so I can breathe easy. My reading has been going okay. I'm reading at a decent pace, but I'm reading one book that is really slow going, and so it feels like I'm not reading as much. I did finish a book this week. I finished Gyasi's new novel, Transcendent Kingdom. Gyasi is one of my young artists to watch for. When she came out with her debut novel, Homegoing, it was my favorite book of that year. And I had the great good fortune to meet her and talk with her with a group of my students in Florida, the last place I was teaching before I retired. She did an event there that was sponsored by the county library, but they screwed up the publicity and very few people knew she was there. And so it was a very small audience, which I felt bad for her. But at the same time, it meant my students had a lot of one-on-one access to her, and she was very gracious, gave her full talk, answered all their questions, took selfies with all of them, signed all their books. It was a wonderful experience for them and for me. And so I've been really looking forward to this next one coming out. This one is very different in character to her first novel. Her first novel was a collection of interwoven generational stories, both in the United States and in Ghana. Her family is from Ghana. In fact, she was born in Ghana, Gyasi was, and then she grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. Transcendent Kingdom is a single story about a young academic, a neuroscience PhD student at Stanford, who was actually born and grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. So she's drawing on her hometown experiences there. But her parents are from Ghana. And so she has that part immigrant, part native experience to try to piece together her identity. And the woman's name is Gifty. She went to Harvard as an undergrad. She is at Stanford working in a science lab, finishing up her PhD. She works on, it's hard to describe because I don't know the science that well, but she's working with mice in their reward seeking and inhibitions. So what would make them seek a reward even at the risk of getting a shock or something like that. And so she's working on that kind of addictive behavior, which is kind of appropriate because her brother became addicted to opioids. Not the author, the character. I'm talking about the book now. And so in her nuclear family, her father abandons them and goes back to Ghana, ends up marrying another woman, just abandons the family altogether. She loses her brother to an overdose, and then her mother struggles with terrific depression afterwards. And so she's almost lost her whole family, and she's trying to understand what it all means and negotiate between her faith and her losing faith, her identity, what it means to be a family, all these different things. So in many ways, it's a very quiet, somber novel rather than the really powerful, dynamic change every 4 pages type book she wrote first. I didn't like it as much as Homegoing, but that's a pretty high bar to reach. I liked it just fine. It just, I don't know how you compete with such a brilliant debut. So this one is definitely one to watch. It's one to read. It reads fairly quickly. I have no doubt that it's going to get some notice for next year's BookTube prize. I don't know how well it will do. But I think it's a really good, strong second novel, and I'm already anticipating what she might write next. She's still very young. She could write a lot of books. So that's the only book I finished. I say almost finished. I still have 150 pages left, but Possession by A.S. Byatt is 550 pages long. It's the book for my BARTERHORDES BACKLIST book club. It's the selection for October that we'll start discussing on the 21st in the book club, on the 22nd in the book club. And so I'm 400 pages into that one, and it's a reread for me. I read it many years ago, and to be honest, I did not remember a lot of it. And my reaction to it this time has been very different than my reaction to it was some 25, 26, 27 years ago whenever it came out. But I'll talk more about that one after we've had our book club discussion and after I finished it. And I've just recently started Graham Swift's new one, Here We Are. Graham Swift is a writer that I fell enamored with when I was an undergraduate in my English studies program and then in graduate school. He was one of the authors I wrote about in my doctoral dissertation. The book of his that I always recommend people try is Waterland, one of his early books, but I still think it's his masterpiece. This new one is much briefer than Waterland. I have only just read the first 50 pages, so I'm not going to really talk about it yet, but I'll talk about it next week. But I'm really excited that he has a new one out. And then I'm still doing a chapter or 2 or 3 chapters a week or so of the history of Korea by Kyung Hwang. It's very good. I'm still in early Korea days where the kingdom has just become unified. So I'm still not even into the Joseon period, which lasts over 500 years. And that's the period that I'm the most interested in because of my own research interests. So that's what I've been reading. K-dramas continue apace, of course. I can't have a day without at least watching 1 episode, sometimes 3 or 4 episodes. I finished the historical one that I was watching called My Sassy Girl, which I did not particularly care for. It just never really clicked for me, even though it has a lot of the elements I like in K-dramas. Whether it was the script or the cast or whatever, it just didn't excite me. And I actually fell asleep watching it on 2 out of the 5 nights that I watched this, and that never happens to me. So either I was inordinately tired this last week, or it just wasn't keeping my attention at the end of the long day. So that one's finished. I also finished the one that I was buddy watching with a friend of mine in Texas. It was her first full K-drama series. And we watched It's Okay to Not Be Okay, which is a relatively new series. And it's just absolutely stunning. I love this series. It's one of my top 3 now. There are really 3 main characters. The main character is a young man named Gang Tae, who is a care worker at mental health institutions, but he's also the guardian for his older brother, Sang Tae, who is autistic. And their father died when they were young, but their mother was murdered when they were fairly young, and apparently was murdered right in front of the autistic son. And so he's traumatized by this, and he's traumatized by butterflies. And we know it's associated somehow with the death of his mother, but we don't know the details until later in the show. And then the third main character is a young woman who is a fairy tale writer, but she is kind of a recluse. She is socially inept. She's very much like Sang Tae in that she doesn't understand people. but she is linked to their story in a couple of different ways, some ways that they don't even know yet. And so it's the story of how they interact with each other and how their stories interweave. And it's ultimately about family, but it's about the families you choose rather than the families you're born into in some ways. The entire cast of secondary characters are wonderful. Everybody in this drama is just brilliant. And the last episode, typical 16 episode series, the last episode, the entire last hour, I spent alternately laughing out loud and crying. It's just devastatingly emotional. So good. You have to watch that one. So people ask me, because I talk about K-dramas all the time, what I would recommend they start with. And if you have Netflix, my 3 favorites all happen to be on Netflix. So either watch Crash Landing on You, which is my all-time favorite, Itaewon Class, which was the second one that I really fell in love with, and now I would also say It's Okay to Not Be Okay should be on that list of favorites too. So give one of them a try. A friend of mine now, a former student of mine actually, is watching It's Okay to Not Be Okay, and she sent me a message on Instagram after the first episode. She said, "This is weird." And it is. The first couple of episodes are weird, but you understand why they were weird later on, and it's all just wonderful. So those are the 2 that I finished. I'm almost finished with one I'm doing with my K-drama appreciation group friends. We've been watching one that's on Rakuten Viki. It's called Sky Castle, and we've watched 16 of the 20 episodes, so we'll finish it early next week. And that is all about high-powered families and the lengths they will go to get their children into the colleges they want to go to, and it is ugly. That's all I'll say about that one. And then last night I just started a new one. It's another contemporary one called Romance is a Bonus Book, and it's also on Netflix. I don't know a lot about it yet. I just started with it, but it's about a woman who's 37. She's been divorced for a year. Her husband cheated on her and then left, and she's been out of the workforce for almost a decade, and it's almost impossible to get back into the workforce as a professional. So she's actually lied on her resume that she didn't go to college. She just has a high school diploma, so she could get what is essentially an office grunt's job. It turns out she gets it at a publishing company where one of her longtime friends is a big editor. He didn't help her get the job, and in fact, he didn't want her to work there because he thought it would be awkward. But she ends up working there, and she's trying to make her way into the professional world again, and dealing with the mess that has become her personal life. And so far, it looks really good. So that's what I've been watching. Lots of stuff. Last week, I mentioned to you that I finished my long-time classical music project where I was going through basically an encyclopedia of the best orchestral works, and I made a long playlist for that project as I listened to each of the works in that reference text. And so what I thought I would do is start looking at some of the new releases that come out each week. I'm an Apple Music subscriber. This is not a sponsored video. They don't know that I'm talking about them. They don't care. But each week they have a display of new albums in all the different genres. And so I always look through those to see what's just come out in the classical world. And there are a lot of Beethoven recordings coming out this year because I believe it's the 250th anniversary of his birth this year. And of course, there were festivals scheduled all over the planet for Beethoven that had to be canceled because of the pandemic, but a lot of recordings have still come out. And the one that I featured this week happens to be a recording of Beethoven's first 2 piano concertos with a Swiss pianist that I did not know before. His name is Olivier Cavé. He's a fairly young guy, and he's playing with the Chamber Academy of Potsdam, which is a recording group that I have not heard very often. So I listened to it, and it's a terrific recording. It really is well done. His playing is so clean and so emotional and so easy to follow. It's just really well done. So if you're interested in Beethoven at all and his piano concertos, which are brilliant, most people know the second piano concerto. They hear that a lot, but they don't hear the first one as often. And so that was a real pleasure to listen to that one. I have linked to it in the description box below, so you can see the reference in Apple Music if you want to listen to a sample of that. So that's all I've been up to. I've been writing. I've been studying Korean, a little slower than I was before. I need to pick that back up again. I've been watching a lot of K-dramas. English Premier League starts again tomorrow, this weekend, after a week off for the international break. My Newcastle United has had a decent start, but they face Manchester United tomorrow or Sunday. I forget if it's tomorrow or Sunday. And Manchester United is off to a rocky start. They're even talking about replacing their manager already, which means they're going to get healthy and take it out on Newcastle tomorrow and probably beat us to death. So I'm not looking forward to that. I'm hoping for that chaos to continue at Manchester United one more week, at least until we get past them. So that's all I've been up to. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.